let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You can hear with some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to the
Good evening,
show.
Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Hi. Good afternoon. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Yes, it's midweek. We've made it. Almost there. Almost there. Just hold on. What a week it has been so far. It's good to be here with you again. Just making sure we send out all those links. There we go. Got to make sure it's live so that I have no issues. And I'm hoping that the internet and connection pretty much holds up this evening. My apologies, beyond my control, but it's good to be back with you here for another exciting episode of Sabrina Speaks. Yes, hello to all of you near and far. It's good to be back with you. I am Sabrina, for those of you just joining me for the first time, and welcome. You're in tune to another episode of Sabrina Speaks. Yes, voices of the islands, conversations for the world, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. And tonight, it's no different. Yes, we're inspiring. I saw the I would almost say off-topic conversation last night, and that drew me to exactly what we're going to be talking about today, because it's amazing. Despite we were speaking about district councils, I noticed a very, very fluid conversation that was happening behind the scenes that all of you saw the commentary on. And it was very interesting to see the feedback and the difference in opinions that were shared publicly. And I welcome those, to be honest with you. And that's why tonight we're stepping right into the middle of the national conversation, because it is being had, to be honest, as we continue to be at a crossroads here in the Cayman Islands. And it's no new episode for us here. And I'll show you that in a moment, because we have brought this up here before. And I'm so happy, based on the conversation that was ensuing while we were talking about district councils, to bring it up here this evening. And I wouldn't say that we're at a boiling point, but we're hearing people speaking about it more and more. And what I'm talking about is acknowledging the fact that we're seeing where the Cayman Islands is at a crossroads, not just politically, not even just economically, but culturally. And we're fighting to protect our own identities. We see that, we hear it, we feel it. We're fighting to see our access to opportunities. We're also fighting for our sense of home ownership, of being embraced and feeling like, yes, this is home. And at the same time, we're navigating a globalized economy that doesn't slow down for anyone. That's the harsh reality. And right in the middle of that tension sits a deceptively, I could say, but yet a simple question. Deceptively was the choice of word. And the simple question, to be honest with you, is, should businesses be allowed to open on Sundays? Yes, that's the simple question. I saw the employment conversation back. I saw reminiscent of persons sharing their personal stories and their opinions on employers' behaviors and so forth, and a culture shift. But really, the simple question is, should businesses be allowed to open on Sundays? And some say, it's sacred. It is a day of rest, a day of reflection, a day for family, a day of peace and quiet. Really? When last have the average Joe been on the road, save for going to a brunch or church service on a Sunday? And others say choice is freedom, and that pretty much a modern economy shouldn't shut down because of tradition. But tonight, I'm hoping that we can open the space and use the space as we're doing, and hoping that we will be able to really just unpack the law, the culture, the economics, the fares, and also the realities. And we're asking that real question. Does Cayman still need Sunday closure laws? Or are we holding on to something that no longer reflects who we are? Welcome, one and all. The content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, my guest and/or participants, is intended solely for general information and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional, legal, medical, or financial advice. I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. 345-936-8255 is the number to call to be a part of this conversation this evening. And like I said, it's good to be back with you. Let's get straight to it so that we can get on our way to this very informative, thought-provoking conversation about exactly what and where we're going as a jurisdiction, but not before checking in on the weather that has been dominating headlines and definitely all platforms for this from last weekend. Compliments of the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. The forecast for tonight calls for cloudy skies with intermittent rain and occasional showers are expected through the next 36 hours as increasing moisture drifts over the Western Caribbean, trailing remnants of a frontal boundary. Now, some of these showers may become locally heavy at times, especially overnight. From late Thursday, a less impactful front than our previous one will drift across the Northwest Caribbean, decreasing showers, activity, and bringing fresh, strong winds, rough seas, and noticeably cooler temperatures. Decreasing winds will improve marine conditions for a later time in the day, with small craft advisory being discontinued in the afternoon. Now, a small craft alert will be issued on Thursday night as seas once again deteriorate with westerly swells that are expected. The forecast for tonight is calling for overcast skies with rains and scattered showers. Some showers may become locally heavy at times. Temperatures will fall to the low 70s and winds will be east to northeast 5 to 10 knots, becoming north to northeast by daybreak. Now, seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. There will be a high tide this evening at 11:42 tonight and a low tide at 5:31 tomorrow morning. A sun will set this evening at 6:19 and sunrise at 6:59 tomorrow. The outlook is for a cold front to enter the Northwest Caribbean by late Thursday, decreasing shower activity thereafter. Now, this front being less impactful than the last system is expected to continue moving through the Cayman area and eventually becoming stationary east of Jamaica by late Friday. Now, the associated high pressure system to this will bring some fresh to locally strong north to northwest winds, rough seas, and noticeably, again, cooler temperatures. And a small craft alert will be in place for Thursday night. So here you have it. And for all of you who have planned activities, please consider doing them indoors, especially if it's in the evenings. And pretty much all day we've been having light showers So make sure you plan wisely and make sure you keep it locked. Once we have it, we'll share it. And of course, you can always go on to the Cayman Islands National Weather Service for more detailed weather report. But welcome, one and all. Now let's take a look at our headlines across Cayman, Caribbean, and definitely the United States, and our news roundup for today. And I intend to continue this, bringing you with top stories from here, the region, and definitely around the world. So let's bring it straight here to home, because there are two major crime stories reported by the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service today. Over in Cayman Brac, a 31-year-old man was arrested and formally charged with rape following an incident that occurred on January 31st. Now, the alleged assault took place in the Cemetery Road area. The victim and the accused are known to each other. The man appeared in court today, February 4th, and has been remanded in custody. He is scheduled to appear on Friday, the 6th of February. Meanwhile, on Grand Cayman, police responded to two separate robbery incidents on Tuesday night, February 3rd, one in Savannah and the other in Georgetown. The first occurred just before 8:30 p.m. at a store on Hurst Road. Two men armed with knives entered the store and stole cash and a bottle of wine before fleeing. A third suspect, described as a female, was also seen fleeing the area, and no injuries were reported. Later that night, just before 10 p.m., police responded to an attempted robbery at a store on Walker's Road. Two masked men were also armed with knives, tried to rob a cashier who resisted. The cashier was injured during the struggle but managed to escape. Members of the public helped trap the suspects inside the store by holding the door shutters closed. Police arrived quickly and arrested the two men, ages 18 and 28, both from West Bay, along with a female juvenile believed to be involved. The victim was treated at a hospital for serious but non-life-threatening injuries and later released. Officers also recovered a quantity of cash and seized an abandoned vehicle believed to be connected to the incident. Royal Cayman Islands Police Service believes the two robberies may be linked. Police are commending the bravery of the store employee and the public who intervened, but are reminding everyone that personal safety must always come first. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Criminal Investigations Department at 345-949-4222. Anonymous tips can also be submitted via the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service confidential tip line or through Cayman's Crime Stoppers. And education news here in the Cayman Islands, we notice that the University College of the Cayman Islands is making international waves. Yes, its director has returned from Oxford University with new partnerships focused on artificial intelligence, signaling a bold step forward for Cayman's tech future. Let's just take a look into the U.S. political tensions, yes, are rising. President Donald Trump is calling for federal control over voting systems. Now, this is a move towards sharp criticism from both sides of the aisle, and Senate Majority Leader John Thune has warned that such a shift could pose serious cybersecurity risks. Meanwhile, in a new trade deal between the United States and India is gaining traction. The agreement would lower tariffs on defense, electronics, and petroleum, but some lawmakers are questioning its long-term impact on American jobs. And a personal story making national headlines: the mother of NCP's Savannah Guthrie has gone missing in Arizona, and authorities are investigating, and the family is asking for the public's help. Across the Caribbean, we're noticing on the global stage that prime ministers from Grenada, St. Lucia, and the Virgin Islands are in Dubai this week for the World Governments Summit. Now, they're joining global leaders to discuss how small island nations can attract investment and navigate climate and economic challenges. And in Trinidad and Tobago, security officials are on high alert following a series of political protests. Regional leaders are monitoring the situation closely. Now, there's your Sabrina Speaks daily roundup for today, Wednesday, February 4th. And I'm hoping that you're enjoying the content because even though we're different jurisdictions, we're all connected some way, somehow. I want to take this opportunity to say happy birthday to anybody who's celebrating a birthday today. And definitely for anybody who's celebrating an anniversary or celebrating life. It is good to be back here with you from all of us at Sabrina Speaks. Happy whatever it is you're celebrating. Good evening, Marshall. How are you? Weathering the colds. Good to have you here. The first one commenting today. At Motorist 4622, hi to you as well. And I did reply. Damian Henry, how are you? Good evening to you. It's good to have you in the house. I'd love to get your opinion on today's topic because I don't know if you were logged on yesterday. You saw how fun I would say not fun, but how fluid the off-air conversation was yesterday in regards to the thought of Cayman being open for business on Sunday. But yeah, it's always good to have you here. Darlene, good evening to you as well, my dear. Grace 19P6R, greetings to you as well. Hey, Jimbo, how you? Thank you for the lovely rose. Hoping you're continuing on your well road to mending from all of us here. And I'll promise you, we keep checks on you because you're missed, you're loved, you're appreciated like everybody else. Where's Connie today? Connie Palmer. Where is Connie Bonnie, Jimbo? Can't even send you to chase her. That's a joke. 345-936-8255 is the number to call to be part of this discussion. You're welcome to share your thoughts, your stories, and even your suggestions. Once they're related to today's topic and today's discussion, they are all welcome. And if you're just tuning in with all of those updates and news headlines, welcome to one and all. And tonight we're diving into pretty much an important cultural and economic conversation in regards to Sunday trading. And we're asking, should Cayman keep its Sunday closure laws? That's one of the questions. Should we open up is another question. And if we do, I'll share with you what laws would have to change and how we protect our workers, our culture, and even families. Can it be done? It's a delicate balance. Political pressure, oh, sure it is. Certain organizations, certain sector of society would put political pressure on. Now, we've broken down the current law and, as it pertains to district councils and all that sort of stuff. And we want to just keep it real. And you can always message or call in live, like I said, to weigh in on this conversation. Yes. Oh, Connie, she's right there. Yeah, don't be jealous. Jimbo sent me that rose. You're like, you won them Harper Sharks, Connie Bonnie. Yes, Damian Henry, assignment submission, had my focus last night. Wow, always willing to participate when I can. See, so I'm not going crazy. I know there was a total separate conversation going on. It was very interesting, caught my mind. Yeah, caught my attention, even though I was very much involved in the discussion on district councils as Mr. Belika was weighing in, and we got a number of callers to patch in with him. I saw exactly what other conversation was happening as well on these forums. Jimbo, one day that the roadways are completely filled up. One day that the roadways are completely filled up. Connie Palmer, when? What are you talking about, Jimbo? The one day that the roads aren't completely filled up. Really, Jim? I don't think so. There was traffic on the roads on Sunday. I went out and I picked up my aunt and she was shocked. She was shocked and she kept repeating it, Jimbo. Oh my God, this almost looks like a public holiday then. But she kept saying there was traffic in the roundabout coming from South Sound going into the roundabout by Hurley's, Jim. And that was, I would say, around 11. minutes or a little bit after 12. Yeah, on Sunday. And we covered some ground. We had reason. And she drew my attention to it because I'm aware of it. But for someone who kept repeating it, oh my God, Cayman is changing. Cayman is changing. And those who were going to I guess, brunch as well. And she kept saying, look at the traffic, look at the amount of people that are on the road. And then you could see workers as well going on the road because you can notice who are on bicycles and that sort of stuff. And you're seeing all of the airlines that are coming in. It is, let me tell you something, Sunday, if you didn't know it was Sunday, maybe people were fast like me and they were out watching the waves as well. I don't know, because that was my reason for leaving home. I really wanted to see what was happening along the coastal areas. And we drove all into West Bay. We went by Georgetown Yacht Club up in there by the North Sound to see the difference there. And because interestingly enough, she was saying, well, cruise ships are going to hinder us, and why can't they come into the North Sound? And that's what drove us into going up there to see really the conditions in the North Sound. Hint, hint, that's another national debate or conversation. But we saw yesterday in the news too, where the airstrip is going to be extended out in the North Sound. But I digressed. That was the purpose of going into the North Sound, to really see how bad it was in there compared to certain parts in town and along the 7 Mile corridor. And the traffic, everywhere we went, we took the bypass up, we came back down on the regular 7 Mile corridor strip. And trust me, Jimbo, it was like a regular day almost. Of course, you saw the difference in traffic. But what I'm saying, going back from whence we came and where we are today, Cayman's alive. And it's really, really hard to differentiate sometimes as a young person growing up, knowing what Sundays used to be. You could literally hear a pin drop. It's not the same anymore. So hence the birth of this conversation. And like I told you, we featured this already. We featured this, closed for Sunday is a question mark, Cayman's trade law, culture, and the call for change. We aired an episode of this on the 30th of September. You can go back and look at that. And repetition is key. And the main reason why I felt it was important to bring it back up today is because there's a part one already to it. And for the type of conversations that I saw happening yesterday while we were talking about district councils is why I brought it back up today, because technically with the exemptions under the Sunday trade law, you would be floored at the types of businesses that are exempted. Yes, let me tell you. So here, just to put it in context, there are a number of businesses that are exempted. But when you look at what the law actually says, first and foremost, there is a law that's called the Sunday Trade Law 2014 revision. And that piece of legislation governs what you can do and cannot do on Sundays here in the Cayman Islands. Now, under the law, certain businesses are allowed to operate if they choose. And hence, they would be exempted, meaning even though this law is in place, there are some exemptions that are clearly outlined in the law where it's a matter of choice if they choose to open. Now, these will include restaurants, water sports operators, tourist shops, pharmacists, golf courses, sightseeing activities. These are just some of the examples. And in 2015, it was even expanded to even more. But just straight off the top, here we go. There are 18 areas right there that is allowed to open already on Sunday if they so desire. And even though it may be a little fine in let me get this here on this screen so that I can read it up for you. You got number one, it says druggist shops and dispensaries like pharmacists in relation to the sale of medical stores only. You have restaurants, hotels, and lodging houses. You have establishment for the sale of motor fuel or oils in relation to the sale of those items. You got motor vehicle repair shops or service station in relation to the sale of those items and for spare parts of motor vehicles. Establishment for the sale of bread, ice cream, non-alcoholic beverages, milk, newspapers, bottled water, water in bulk in relation to the sale of those items. Establishment governed by any law of the time being in force in the islands relating to sale of intoxicating liquor in relation to the sale of intoxicating liquor. Establishments approved by Cabinet by publication in the Gazette for the sale of duty-free goods. That's number 7. Number 8, establishment of concerned in water sports or sightseeing attractions. Establishment within the culturage of in the footprint then of a hotel in relation to the sale of souvenirs, items, toiletries, and medical supplies. 10, establishment engage in the sale of supply of funeral caskets or flowers in relation to the sale or supply of these items. Establishment for the sale of victuals, stores, or other necessities required for a ship or aircraft on arrival or immediately before departure from a port or airport in the islands in relation to the sale of those items. Hairdressing and beauty salons, airline and shipping offices, establishment carrying on retail business at an airport, establishments concerned in the rental of motor cars, motorcycles, bicycles, or in the rental or charter of boats in relation to such rentals or charters. Establishments engage in the sale or supply of toiletries in relation to the sale or supply of those items. Establishments engage in the sale or supply of baby products other than clothing and toys in relation to the sale or supply of those items. Establishment concerns in the provisions of such essential services may also be prescribed by a cabinet order. So that is what I have up on the screen, just in case you can't see it, because I know sometimes based on what you're streaming me on, it can be a little thing. It can be a little small. But what I'm saying now, when it comes to the big supermarkets, any supermarket that is in excess, I said 3,000 yesterday is a fraudulent slip. It's any supermarket that is bigger than 4,000 square feet, they're not allowed to open. But any supermarket that is under that footprint is allowed, okay? So when you're looking at the whole aspect of whether or not we're open, this is just, and this was amended as well in 2015. This pretty much gives person the choice. Now, I can understand that for generations, here in the Cayman Islands, it has been very quiet. Church in the morning, family lunch, no loud music, no alcohol sales, limited commercial activity. It was really, or it is known as a day to breathe, to exhale. And pretty much for Caymanians, Sunday closure isn't just a rule. It is a cultural anchor for who we are. Now, please, based on where you're catching this information, I'm not an advocate for or against. I'm just bringing you the facts and putting the questions out there for you to be giving me your feedback. And I would welcome your feedback on this because I'd like to see where we're going. And it's amazing the difference in age, what sector you're in, to get the feedback. Now, it is really a reminder of who we are. And it's a protection against over-commercialization as well, some people may actually say. And what we have actually protected over the years, to a degree, has been a safeguard for workers to rest. also a spiritual value, not just a legal one. But here again, I ask the question, is culture something that we protect through law, or it is something that we live through by choice? And there's a delicate balance when you look at protecting who we are as individuals, preserving our culture, and fighting with the reality that we're saying we need revenue. Well, some may say, shut up. That's not all. What's the sense of making money when your quality of life is nothing? And that's where I invite you to participate. Because you can agree with me, you can disagree with me, but weigh in. I would like the context. I'd like your feedback on this. If culture really needs legislation to survive, think about this. Is it still culture or is it control? Let me repeat it. If culture needs legislation to survive, is it still culture or is it control? Very interesting question when I put together today's notes, spinning off of exactly what we're saying. Yeah, but feel free to weigh in on this because there's also an economic argument as well. And it's all about balance. It's all about giving food for thought. Yes. Thank you, Connie. Jim said it was church letting out. That was, yeah, it could be a little bit of that too. Trust me, the road was very busy on Sunday. Yeah, I saw it. Jim said the traditions are being deleted, which personally I find sad. Tartarian is saying, back in the late 80s, I worked Sunday at Radisson Hotel, but Sunday was quiet still. And I'm quite sure you saw a difference in the traffic back then. Me being raised up right there on Gorin Avenue, I can tell you, those days there was still life in town. We had what you all know now as Kirk Supermarket. That was Kirk Plaza in town. We had Comart, we had Buy Right. Now I'm going way back. But what I'm saying, town was town. And let me go way back. We had Bada Shoe Store in town. You had still all the Kirk's thing, Kirk Freeport stores on Cardinal Avenue. Now I went way back, to the days of Wholesome Bakery. And you saw, you felt, you heard the difference. You could identify Sunday. But can we say that today? And with all of the exemptions that I shared right now, still gives a lot of these businesses who hold valid trade and business license to operate, and some as well as liquor and playing of music within a certain range. Can you say that we're not already open? That we are a service-based economy, meaning we thrive. We make a lot of our revenue from services, goods and services. And just like those persons who get into that line of business, be it as an entrepreneur or an employee, because our society, because our income is derived from service, people buying a service, you need somebody to offer it. Yeah. So it's really a delicate dance. It's a delicate balance when you're also fighting to preserve who we are as people and protect what we call as culture. Grace, with all being said, Sabrina, Sunday law should remain as it is. In reality, one day with less operations mean time for retreat, revision, revival to keep a healthy balance for life. Thank you, Grace, for that. But you can see the flip side of that, Grace, is that we see an increase in hotel accommodations. We see an increase in our stayover tourism. We see an increase in tourism, period. And with all of the exemptions, Grace, that we're seeing already in the law, where's the balance? I understand, and I thank you for your that's one perspective of it. But when you look at all of the exemptions that are already there, can you really say that it's not already open, that it's smoking mirrors? Because with the exception of government, which is a choice, with the exception of schools, technically, the square footage of supermarkets, really over 4,000 square feet, they're the only ones that are closed. And those family-owned businesses who choose not to open because they sell souvenirs and stuff on Sundays, that's a personal choice. But the law, as you said, should remain as it is, have already provided a number of exemptions that means they can open. Every one of those car stores, repair stores, workshops and stuff literally are exempted. They can open if they so choose. So is it a farce? Is it smoking mirrors? Who are we fooling is the question. What is the national stance on this if you really were to get a temperature check on it, measured? Then you look at then at the labor laws of 2021 and how they would actually be able, because you know the law says you have to get at least 24 hours rest, right? One thing with overtime, but it's built in, it's baked into the labor law that you must give an employee 24 hours of rest. It didn't say it had to be a Sunday. It didn't call any day of the week. It just says, of course, we have 7 days in a week, that you get 24 hours of rest. So there are a number of pieces of legislation, if this is the direction that we're going to go, when you look at the amount of exemptions that have been done, it's already there. And the law did not specify, of course, because of those who work shift anyhow, the uniform service, persons in the medical industry, and a work week Monday to Friday does not exist when you come to the uniform service, frontline staff. And even now, when you look at even some of the supermarkets that are in excess of 4,000 square feet retail space, there's work that goes on. There's work that goes on behind the scenes. There are stackers, there are packers, it's just that they're not open to the public. But behind the scenes, people are still working. And once there's a demand for services and goods, it will be interesting to get it from both sides. There are some information, even from the Chamber of Commerce, that led into that direction, that based on information received, that there is a green appetite, meaning positive, that if persons had choice, it would be better for our economy. So this isn't just what I'm saying. This is what even the business community is saying as well. Tartarians say that's why they want to hire foreign workers who don't care about culture. But even them, Tartarian, wants a day off. Even them have come from jurisdictions, to be honest, that really respect Sunday. Some, of course, whatever religion and culture they're coming from, it's a norm. It is a norm. Now, bearing in mind, we're not saying across the world that you do not identify what day is Sunday. Gosh, even in the United States of America, the mere fact that our schools in the Western Hemisphere don't go to school on Saturdays and Sundays, there's a marked difference in traffic anyhow. Okay, it would be very obvious. And government businesses really don't open on the weekends, but that doesn't say that work still doesn't happen. So it is quite interesting to see how we're all evolving, but can you not say that we as a Cayman jurisdiction is not at a crossroads when it comes to this? Tartarian says, tourists should find Sundays unique and be happy with the way it is. A lot of tourists tell me they like that peacefulness that was an attraction in itself. Thank you for that feedback, Tartarian. Virgil, AI will shut down a lot of work. Well, would it shut down a lot of business? Not Virgil, very interesting comment there. Would it shut down the services and then replace those that says, look, I need my peace of mind. I need my well-being. I want my days off to be on Sunday because that's how I'm wired. Okay, fine. That's what we're competing with, Virgil. Very interesting. Whitewash doesn't want to work. Green is grass, but I'm quite sure you know what that means. Marshall, why should Cayman follow the rest of the world with everything? If people can't get what they need from the supermarket Monday to Saturday, then too bad. Keep them closed on Sunday. But Marshall, right now, it's only those supermarkets that are over 4,000 square feet that are closed. All other businesses, retail businesses, in supermarket for groceries, that sort of stuff, as long as they are under, not including their offices and storeroom and stuff, as long as they fall within that retail space of less than 4,000 square feet, they're open for business. They have been open for business from as far as I can remember. I personally used to go to Boose's. Yeah. And that was before the laws were defined because there was a demand for the goods. There was a demand for him to provide the service. Yeah. So you're talking then, Marshall, in your comment would be for those in excess of 4,000, because I'm telling you, they're allowed to open. Hence, Macross, Uncle Clem's, and all of them. Their hours may have shortened, but they can open for business. And there are a lot of other mini marts sprinkled around Grand Cayman that on Sundays, I am telling you, are ram. They are ram of people. Jim, it's the culture, or is it tradition? Jim, that's the question. Is it culture or is it tradition? I think we're fighting for tradition, Jim. I think that's where we're going to actually have the true conversation with those who love and want to protect what we have. It is tradition. I stand to be corrected. I would love other people to weigh in on this because it's just not me. Grace is saying, yes, I think enough is open up to accommodate new arrivals of tourists on a Sunday. The gas station on West Bay Road has sufficient of everything that one would need. See there? And then, hello, remember now there was a time that they couldn't even sell alcohol. And now, petrol stations, gas stations are now, once they apply for the liquor license, they're even allowed to sell liquor. And you know you can go maybe a little bit more pricey, supply and demand, but you can pretty much do a good little shopping if you are just stuck with the closest thing in your neighborhood of being a gas station. You can pick up some pretty interesting stuff there to hold you through until the Monday. Yes, yes, yes. Jim says, which is not the same. Jim says, would this place less employees within the business space, or would more staff needed to be added? I think, well, not speaking for every employer, but I can see them possibly making a more rigorous roster. And it'll be more to making sure that you spread the time and the hours out fairly so no one's subjected of burnout. Now, even if, let's say, this one day takes on a different approach, it may not necessarily change the administrative operations. Maybe the demand on the frontline staff, let's say in the supermarkets, for example, it's your frontline staff. How many Caymanians don't actually, and that's tradition, don't take part-time jobs as an additional income and actually go to these supermarkets and ask for part-time, either working as a cashier or stocking up of shelves or working in whatever department. Many persons do that as a part-time, and maybe that could be the extra persons that will fill those weekends if they have the extra bandwidth available to them, Jimbo. So I can see their employers actually sitting at the table if this becomes a reality, because more and more it is becoming a conversation, even though not necessarily in public forums like this. I'm telling you, the conversations are getting hot, and more you're having it being spoken about. And what you don't want, if there are legislations that are in place that actually stops certain businesses from operating, then where's the enforcement? If there's no enforcement on some of the businesses that are actually engaging in business on a Sunday, that are not on the exempted list or the revised one of 2015, then who's enforcing it? And without enforcement, and without them being held accountable for the breaches of our laws, it makes our laws weak. It makes our tradition, it makes our culture weak. Laws are there to be upheld. But here we go again, Jim, and I know you're familiar with this line. If the gatekeepers aren't gatekeeping, what's the sense of having the laws? It's very interesting. Damian Henry, due to the strong religious traditions, Sunday service was always upheld. However, population increases and culture shift means people are not having any special day off. They could be doing it for personal reasons or just not sticking to culture norms. There you go. That's another way of looking at it. There you know. Did you know Anita Hanshaw? I don't know Anita Hanshaw. We need a patriotic people to say, oh my God, what are these people? I need to, sometimes the Wi-Fi does not click in. Marshall, I used to go to Boose's as well, but just to buy, oh dear Jesus. Marshall, wake up, Cayman is saying, on Sundays, the family needs to be together when everyone should be home. Fathers, mothers, children need time to bond with children. This is where the family unite begins to fall apart. What happens to those, though, who are in the uniform service, are working shift? There is no Sundays. There is no typical work week when you have persons who are on shift. What happens to those families then that have to adjust it because their career, their livelihood is made in the hospitality industry, that they're providing their job, their income is being a service, working in a hotel or a condominium resort that provides these services? You see, I want us, Wake Up Cayman, to just look at it in its totality. In its totality. Those kids, those families actually feel the effects of not having a traditional work week. And there's no difference from someone who's a nurse, a doctor, a firefighter, a police officer. They miss a lot of family times. Their traditional Sundays and long weekends is longing. They're longing. What happens when that's their career choice? Now it's a little different. It is a little different when we're talking about retail. But when you're talking about Sundays, the family needs to be together. That's not always possible based on the nature of work, because that does not apply to our frontline men and women who public holidays is just another day because they could be working. Grace, think of what the mental state of our people would be like without a day of peace and rest. And not everyone can afford to go to Vegas for a day. It's pretty much happening right now, Grace, with those who, again, the analogy that I gave for those persons in the frontline staff. I'm just giving you an idea. They have to make do because of their chosen field of expertise. And even though it's a little odd and you do miss critical time, what do you say for those in the frontline staff? You understand? And we know long-term effects of persons who working shift and all that sort of stuff. We can go back into that. But what I'm saying, we're still looking at it in its totality. In its totality. Wake Up says, if there's not a day where the family can be all together, hardly ever. And this is coming from a place of being an immigration officer and being a nurse. Hardly ever. This is nothing to boast about, but bonding time is usually based on your shift. I can recall seeing my days of being an immigration officer and being posted on departure. Those days, the airport was set up totally different. And our roster was set up in a way where we went on from the first Cayman Airways departure in the morning, and our shift ended the last departure at night. Those days, Air Jamaica was still flying, and we knew, even though she had her time, Air Jamaica created her own time. Meaning, we would go on, but we wouldn't know if Air Jamaica would be delayed and hoping to get home at 9, 10 o'clock, and then that could be 2 a.m. to go back at 5. And what resonated with me then in that chosen field, because I chose that field and I enjoyed it, I loved it. I saw my then younger son asleep 3 days straight. And I say 3 days because then I got a day off, right? Because when I left for work in the morning to be there for 5 a.m., he was sleeping. When I got home in the night, he was already sleeping. That cycle went on for 3 days. You understand? So it all depends on the nature of business. Now, if it wasn't that chosen career and nobody flew on Sunday, yay, hooray, everybody would be home. And it was the same thing with me being a nurse. Those days, Georgetown Hospital, as it was called those days, 3 to 11, 7 to 3, 3 to 11, and 11 to 7, the graveyard shift. And it wasn't a 12-hour shift those days. And you just honestly, because of your choice, a regular day of the week did not exist. You automatically shift. But I still was able, when I had those 1, 2, or 3 days off, I still managed. This is my personal experience. I still managed to do a lot of bonding with my time and family gatherings as well. To say it was easy? No. It was hard. To say that I lost time with my younger kids during those phases of my life? Yes. Do I regret it? A little. I was not out gallivanting. I wasn't. I was keeping the lights on and food on the table and was able to create a quality of life for them that they're all benefiting from. And whenever I had those times, this is just me, I gave my all to them. That's just my personal experience having work shift. It's not easy. I'm telling you, it's not. But the fact of saying that this particular day has to be for rest, it all depends on your chosen field. Can we get raping at the gas station? I don't know what that is. Grace says the emergency service do get some Sundays off because they spend families because of shift schedule. Yeah, it's rotated. But you can go a whole, maybe 3-week cycle before you get a Sunday. And likewise with public holidays. So for, and it was the same thing at immigration as well. Same for Christmas Day and New Year's Day as well. Like you would actually be fair with your other peers who worked this Christmas, who worked that last year, and you do an alternate. Yeah, but you could have a 3-week cycle where you don't actually see a Sunday as a day off because you're spreading it across, which goes back, Grace, to what I'm saying. It would have to be a rigorous scheduling thing that each organization would have to do so that everyone will at least get that Sunday off. Mr. Balika, how are you? He's actually quoting something here. The Bible says, and he, Jesus Christ, bracket, answered them saying, which of you shall have an ox or an ass falling into a pit and will not straightway pull him out on the Sabbath? You use this in a conversation, you know. You used it. It's true. It's true. What are you going to do? You're not going to pull him out because it's the Sabbath and they said you're only supposed to rest. Now, the Sabbath in this context, because he's quoting from the Bible, can be the Sunday, whatever your chosen day of religion is. I get what he's trying to say. I get exactly what he's trying to say. And it begs to question then the economic side of things that has proven we are an economy. Our economy is based on service-driven tourism is heavy. It's really, really heavy. And the expectations of our tourists, even though you have those who are saying, I love the peaceful tranquility of Sundays. This is why we adore this place. You have the others that come here and says, look, what's up? I feel like I've landed on Gilligan's Island. It's all about a balance. And that is why it's unique in our product offering that we strike a balance, but don't forget what you, the people, are actually advocating for. And we're not going to be able to get a true semblance of that because it requires the talking now. It requires renewal. It requires a new visit unless you speak up. We need to hear what you feel about this. Okay? Grace says, I'll settle for 2 national day off, Friday and Saturday. Okay, there you go. Some people actually have set days off, Grace, to be honest. And it all depends on your organization and the amount of persons in your organization. Some people can actually say, every Monday I'm going to be off. Every Friday, Saturday I'm going to be off. I'll take my half a day on a Wednesday and my full day off on a Friday. I don't know. It all depends on the rules that governs whatever organization you are. And many a times it's just cooperation and good communication. Alfred Real says, is Sunday a shared pause that safeguards rest, family, and dignity for workers? Or has it become an uneven restriction that no longer matches how Cayman lives and earns? Interesting. I'm thinking it's more the latter. No longer matches how Cayman lives and earns. And I continue. As our economy diversifies and our population changes, the harder question may be this: are we preserving culture intentionally or preserving it by default? Where's the reality in all of that, Alfred Real? I think you need more opinions to weigh in on this, but are we preserving culture intentionally or preserving it by default? And again, I would more lean on the default because, as you said, laws that once unified can quietly divide when they stop being openly examined. Again, Alfred Real, I got to applaud you for that. And this is why open discussions like this is pivotal. They're key. So you're hearing all sides. Yes. And I'm feeling where there's a struggle where some is saying, I need to do whatever I got to do to keep my mortgage paid, to keep the lights on, to keep food on my table. I will go to church. I will arrange my break that I could take my lunch on a Sunday if I'm having to work on a Sunday. I can see me walking across the parking lot of Georgetown Seventh-day Adventist Church many Saturdays when I was a nurse. I would go in there and I would sit down for my hour. I'm just saying, I did it because I raised up into a Seventh-day Adventist home and I see a number of persons who do it. You see what I'm saying? But I think it's all the latter, to be honest with you, by default. Denver, welcome. You late to class this evening or you late to commenting? What happened? How are you? Hope you're doing well. Denver says, started at 14, worked every day. I had cause. I wanted to up. I waited to up until 60. I think that's a little typo there, Denver. Jim says, what about Sunday Christians? Would it fall under the same for those who are Seventh-day Adventists who don't work on Saturdays? It's a matter of choice, Jim. Like I said, you didn't have that choice in the medical industry when I was a nurse. They respect you that you were Adventist, but it wasn't anything carved out to say, well, okay, because I was an Adventist, I would get every Sabbath off. No. If I worked on a Saturday and it was a shift, let's say it was a 7 to 3 shift and I couldn't get to Sabbath school or I could choose Do I want to go to Sabbath school? Do I want to go to divine worship, to the preaching part? I would try to work out with my peers on that 7 to 3 shift what part of the service I wanted to catch, and I would take my hour lunch then, and I would walk over to the Georgetown Seventh-day Adventist Church and partook in the service. But yeah, it's quite interesting. Cultural diversification, Damian Henry is saying. Denver Douglas says, by default, we're not protecting culture. We could if and be different if not for the greedy of many. Well, that is where the open dialogue, Denver, needs to be had. And the more we talk about this and the more we're seeing legislation being broken, because it's not like we don't have laws. The whole focus was exactly what we pointed to. The amount of exemptions and the reality. It's business as usual, even on a Sunday. And some are even open illegally. But if there's nobody gatekeeping, what's the sense of even an exemption? What's the sense of having the hard and fast laws to say you can't open when you're not apprehending offenders? It kind of is a disrespect, to be honest. If we confirm exactly what road, what trajectory we're taking as a jurisdiction that includes the feedback from the populace, from the people, from the public, from everybody's opinions. Dean Gillette says, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. The problem is when someone doesn't want to work on their Sabbath, but is forced to do so. It takes a bit of understanding as well, I think, Dean, because some would actually say it's a bit selfish, if you're working in an industry where you know that it's shift work, which is very important when you're applying for a job to declare your religious background, because if that's going to impede on you being able to work because of the culture that is within that organization, you want to actually declare that from the beginning. So you don't actually get the job and then, it becomes a problem. You want to be transparent, in my humble opinion, be it Saturday or Sunday, whenever you're actually employing for these jobs, so that there's no misunderstanding. And then you need to do your own homework with certain organizations as well to see their culture and how they actually respect people's religion as well. So, Dean, it's very interesting. And even that organizations we're seeing are having to conform and respecting people's way of their choice of worship. What would you say then to those who are atheists? That it's neither here nor there. Wouldn't they not be entitled to a Saturday or a Sunday? It's not an entitlement, in my humble opinion, but make sure you do your research before applying to any organization to see what their culture is when it comes to religion. If it is a Monday to Friday thing, then you're good. But if you know that it's shift and there's a great chance that they're going to be doing business, or you would be required to work on a day that you would normally be off to because of religious purposes, you want to declare that from the get-go, in my humble opinion. Wake Up, Cayman Island says, here in the United Kingdom, shops are open late morning and close early. That's half day. All other non-essential business are closed. There are different on Sundays here. Family are out enjoying time together. Thank you for sharing that with us, Wake Up, Cayman. Yeah, I covered a Sunday there in the UK, and I was surprised. There was a marked difference, I must say. And yes, the hours of operations were way less than your Monday to Saturday, actually. But businesses were open. Gray says, no one can keep the Sabbath. Worship, fellowship is a choice. God accepts or worships on any day and any time. Well said, Grace. You're quite right. Even when you're on the job, you can have your own little worship right there. Grace says religious people causes division. Worshippers of God have understanding and can unite on any given day. Thank you so much for that. Denver says, as so Cayman should be the same as UK. Well, there you go. Denver, you like an austerizer blender, you know, but well said. Do you realize how it would be easy for our government to actually say, we're just going to cookie cutter exactly what was said here, that the United Kingdom is open? Do you realize that if our government officials are fearful of doing it, that they can say, well, we're a British overseas jurisdiction, and here, all we're doing is just matching what they do in the United Kingdom. What would you say then? Would be interesting, Denver. You are something else, but you're making sense. And it could be a cop-out. Now, I still feel that participatory democracy works. And this is why it's important for everyone to weigh in and give their opinion and to give their feedback to their leaders. And at the end of the day, you have to look at it, remove yourself completely as an individual so that you're able to absorb in an unbiased way and listen to all 4 to 17 sides, because you're going to have it coming from you at all angles. And you cannot be so close-minded with one thing. These are my policymakers now, my leaders now I'm talking to. You can't be so rigid on yourself to only have at the forefront processing what is being told to you from all angles with one thing on your mind. Boy, I want to get reelected. Because there's a bigger picture at hand. It may not be understood at the very precise time, but to be fair to not only yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice if only one thing is at the forefront of your mind about being reelected, if you have to make a difficult choice. If that is being hindered by you only having one thing on your mind, but you're missing all that's being said around you, you're not able to get a true reading of what's happening around you, you're not only doing a disservice for yourself, you're doing a disservice to your country. And this is why it's good to have the real conversations at all time and be open. Just be open, be honest with yourself. There's nothing wrong. Because if you ostracize the very same people who elect you, guess what's going to happen? You're still going to lose at the polls. If it's only one topic, you could still lose at the polls. So don't do yourself that disservice. Hey, Miss Dorothy, how you doing? How you doing? Dean Gillette said, then should someone be denied a job based on religion? That could be looked at as bias. You'd have to prove it. Hence, Dean, what I said, it's good for you to actually do your own personal research before applying to certain organization to get some sort of semblance as to their culture when it comes to religion. You'd have to prove it, to be honest. But what helps is when you can actually do your own research. And Cayman is so small, you would know persons who are working in a particular organization that you could do a annual SWOT to find out how they look at it and what the culture and behavior is like. And we're seeing where our economy, our society, is a melting pot of various nationalities, various cultures, many of whom now are Caymanians and are running their own businesses, and they have their own cultures and practices and norms in their business. It's good for you to know who you are going to be working for, because there may be, let's say, devil's advocate here, that I'm applying for an organization and I didn't do my homework and I didn't realize that the owner religious beliefs just totally doesn't align with mine, but they're the Caymanian owner and they operate the business. Now, you know, that's going to be a clash right there, because there's just going to be certain things, certain practices within their organization, within the culture that's embedded within that organization, that automatically you're on the back foot immediately. Hence, my advice to anyone, do your homework. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Sabrina Speaks. You're live. What's on your mind?
Good evening. This topic, you know, this is near and dear to my heart.
I know it is. Welcome.
I love the comment that has just come in and on the screen right now, and I'd like to provide some insight into that.
Thank you.
So the situation of being biased or discriminated against, for another interpretation of that, in relation to somebody's specific religion, as opposed to being able to fill the job requirements, are two completely separate things. If you are saying, I am not going to hire John X because he is a Rastafarian, right? That is absolute discrimination on the surface. And it, of course, if it was to be taken to court, it would have to be proven. You would have to have, your evidence and whatever to back up your claim. However, if there is something that, for example, a situation where a 7-day Adventist is applying for a job, and the job requires all employees to be able and willing to work, say, Monday to Saturday, as scheduled, and that individual is unable to meet that job requirement, that is not just a bias or a discrimination. That is you not being able to fill the requirements for that job. We are I shouldn't say we. A company would be happy to, or not. A company should not be against hiring someone who is a 7-day Adventist. The religion has nothing to do with the job requirement. However, the 7-day Adventist has to be of the understanding that when scheduled, they will have to work as the job requires. So it's two very, very different things. So if they say, I'm sorry, I will not work on Saturdays, you're not able to fill the job requirements, which has nothing to do in the employer's eyes with your religion. It is simply that you're unable to fill the job requirements. So hopefully that provides some insight on where religion and job requirements can have very blurred lines, and it's very emotive.
Yes.
It's extremely emotive.
Yes.
But one also has to keep in mind that they don't know what is going on in that company prior to them trying to join or joining. That company may very well have other people who are employed who are already of a certain religion that has a belief system that they shouldn't work certain days, and the company is unable to provide that for them. So how unfair would that be now to do it for the newcomer?
Exactly.
Right? So I just wanted to throw in my little 2 cents into the pocket and put my perspective on that and how things are looked at, because it can be seen on the surface very easy as, oh, they're discriminating against me because I'm this or that, and it's not that. It's the fact of the matter of what are the job requirements. And like you said, there is a certain amount of onus and accountability that needs to be taken, especially nowadays when there's so much social media and internet. And even before that, Cayman was a very close-knit society. You need to do your homework as well with the people that you're keenly interested in going and applying for jobs with, so that you know what their expectations are to come to the table. And like you said, just a short while ago, you may have discovered that their belief system or their morals or their ethics are completely opposite of yours. And that's good knowledge to have prior to going to the not even the interview, but
before you even apply.
Right?
Yeah.
So So there,
Thank you.
that's me.
Thank you so much. Let's see if you got a feedback on this. Jim says, and I have it up on the screen, if Cayman is seriously thinking on going in the direction you are speaking on, I'll add in, go back to a 40-hour work week, 4 days, 10 hours a day. Part-timers can do 3 days at a 30-hour work week, offering people a life/work balance. Life's too stinking short. Oh, okay. Yeah, life is too short. Yeah, I was hoping that caller would have weighed in on that, her thoughts on that. And thank you for sharing that. And that caller works in human resources. So she comes versed on exactly providing and validating what I've said. Connie, I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, it should be interesting how and where we end up going. But I'm going to tell you what, though. If for some reason, if Sunday opens, what will happen to workers in this case is that in accordance to our Labor Act, which some of these legislations will have to change, a mandatory, as I have alluded to, under Section 19 of the labor law, requires that you'll get, and I said that at the beginning, 1 full day of rest in every 7 days. So you're guaranteed 1 day. They didn't specify any specific day, right? In regards to overtime, in accordance to Section 24 of the Labor Act of 2021, that requires time and a half for hours beyond the standard work week. Now, you know that there are certain differences in regards to the hospitality industry and any organization who requires staff to work over the standard work week. You need those organizations, along with the staff, needs to get permission from the Department of Labor and Pensions in order for staff to work at the same rate of pay instead of time and a half. You heard what I just said? It is not an internal decision to just continue working at your same rate of pay if you're going to work more than your standard work week and don't get overtime pay at a different rate. The only how that can actually be done, and that is if it is approved by the Department of Labor and Pensions. No independent employer can change that rule once a staff works overtime for the same rate of pay. That has to be approved and equally approved by the employee and the organization with the inclusion of the Department of Labor and Pensions. Okay? Section 75 says that it prohibits intimidation or pressure to accept unwanted conditions. Yes, this is protection from coercion. Yeah, bullying things that we talked here. And then also under the Labor Act, it talks about safe and healthy working conditions. And that is actually outlined in Section 58 to 60 that requires employers to protect workers' physical and mental health. Yeah. And when you look at then, we were talking about the roster, scheduling. Fair scheduling and humane treatment is also covered under the law. And under this Labor Act is that it ensures employers must act reasonably and also in good faith. But we are already seeing breaches. We hear them all the time. We hear stories, heart-wrenching stories of unpaid overtime, voluntary shifts that aren't voluntary. Can you imagine? And schedules change even without notice. And what we've also shared on this space is the realities that workers have this fear to report violations. And these all fall under the labor law. And they're already working 6 and 7 days straight. So do you realize where I'm going back with these realities? The gatekeepers need to gatekeep. Because if Sunday trading is relaxed, for a better word, officially, the risks that comes with that, of course, you guys have pointed it out already. There's more pressure to work on Sundays. yes, you pointed out there could be an erosion of family time. There could be burnout, but it all depends on the context and the nature, the industry that you so choose to work in. So we need to have protections if this is really the direction we're going to go in making sure that there will be some form of mandatory Sunday premium pay and guaranteed voluntary Sunday shifts would be something they could be considering as well. And at the end of the day, that the necessary mental health protections, penalties of breaches are definitely, but again, that falls on the resources and manpower and training of the gatekeepers. And more enhanced, trusted, anonymous reporting channels so that if anyone is in breach of these legislations, these laws, these rules, that they feel protected. They feel that at the end of the day, I can file a complaint and it will not be used against me. Because we're seeing it here, where the future is coming, ladies and gentlemen. It's coming. We see tourism is changing. We see consumer expectations are also changing. Guess what? Sunday trading will eventually take a different look. We're seeing it already. Just carpool on a Sunday for a casual drive, and you'll see what I'm saying. The real issue is not whether businesses open. It's whether workers are protected if and when they do, because it is going to be a reality at some point. Gray says, religion has our people in the Caribbean brainwashed. We need people who can trust, loyal, peaceful, respectful, compassionate, committed, supportive to handle the affairs of a nation. Denver weighs in and says, many a company break the law with imported cheap labor, having them sign a contract that will not pay them overtime, having them to work 9, 10, 11 hours a week. Sorry, there will come a day. Okay, I saw what you said there. Yeah. Well, again, I'm hoping that someone who's listening to this will understand that no organization can actually go against the standard work week, especially when it comes to overtime pay. And that has to be unanimously agreed by all three parties, the DLP, the employee, and the organization. So if you didn't know, now you know. Gray says, religion can't run a country. Visionaries with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding is what we need, not a religious decision. Hence, looking at it unbiased from a realistic perspective, and it goes back to what I just said. The real issue is not whether business is open, in this particular case for protection of employees. It's whether workers are protected when they do open, because the future, as we see that's coming, tourism is definitely changing and consumer expectations are also changing. And guess what? For emphasis, Sunday will eventually take a different look. Tartarian says, when I worked as a nursing assistant in the United Kingdom, night shift was great for me because of the time difference between UK and Cayman. I got every Sundays off, but slept through most of the day. You usually find that, though. And it all depends on the construct of your family, your age, and all that sort of stuff. It's amazing how your body just get used to shift. But it's very important for you to get the requisite rest that you need as well. And some people may argue, well, that takes away on family time. It takes a lot of support as well from your family and understanding. But the best rewarding thing, if you just so happen to be nursing, frontline uniform services, what's most rewarding is that if you enjoy what you do, then guess what? Everything fits in quite well. Yes, I got, let me read this. We must be minded unintended consequences. We are already okay. We must keep in mind unintended consequences. We are already feeling the effects from minimum wage increases everywhere. If companies are required to pay staff further, Sunday work premium, once again, those expenses will be passed down to the consumer, or who is willing to pay higher prices when shopping on a Sunday, as opposed to Monday to Saturday. It's indeed a vicious cycle, and both sides have pros and cons. Thank you for that. Exactly. I'm just putting them on the table, and I love when I get the feedback that you are actually participating and see exactly from all sides as well. I guess there's a price for convenience. There's a price for everything. And at the end of the day, then, who feels it the most? Unintended consequences. Well said. Thank you for that message, my love. Denver says, I had WORC change that I heard, or I had WORC change that with a company, their employer only take short breaks to eat with 12 hours a day. I felt so bad for those employees. You mean work or labor board? Denver, I need a little bit more context on that. You heard, I'm assuming this is heard. I heard WORC change that with a company, their employers only take a short break to eat, working 12 hours a day. I felt so bad for those employees, that employees only take a short break to eat, working 12 hours. Well, that's inhumane. And that would not align with the law. So I would double check. If I were you, Denver, I would fact find that. And if it is a reality, I can assure you, I cannot see DLP, which is not work. It would be the Department of Labor and Pensions. I can't see them actually approving that. So instead of WORC changing it, is what I'm getting from you, it would be the Department of Labor and Pensions. And I can't see them actually doing that if it was clear. I will put myself out on a limb. That would go against the very same laws that they're governed under, Denver. So I would do some more fact finding on that if I were you. And if it's actually happening within whatever organization you are actually telling me about, it's illegal. Bottom line, it's illegal. In my research and also preparing for today, I found out that there's some information, maybe a little bit dated, and I'm quite sure it'll be interesting now to see exactly where we stand now in 2026. But based on information that became available to me, I noticed that the chamber position back in, they surveyed their members twice in 2005 and back in 2013. I know it's a while, but just to give you an idea, right? And having been to the Economic Forum week before last Friday, yeah, it's being talked about, okay? But back then, both surveys had shown strong support for allowing businesses to choose to open on Sundays. And pretty much their position at that time, consumers felt that their position was that consumers should have the option, and businesses themselves should have an option. And the market really should determine the demand, meaning if you see Sunday's night worth turning on the lights and having staff man certain positions, then don't open. Let the market determine the demand as to whether or not your business is worth opening, okay? But there was also from this report that they had a raise in question, the choice for who? That was the overarching question when that question came up. Who? Would it be the business owner, the worker, the consumer, or would it be all three? You see where there's a hybrid? It's a hybrid because as my WhatsApper commented saying, if you're going to look for premium pay on a Sunday, then your employer may say, I ain't paying you guys, let's lock. But then if consumers demand it and they don't mind paying the differential in accessing that, then that may work out for you. Let me tell you something. Again, it's a vicious cycle and both sides have pros and cons. It is interesting. It is interesting. So if this is definitely the road that we're going, there are a number of legislations that would have to be looked at. Another thing on the plate for any sitting administration who wants to take this on. And at the end of the day, it isn't just a matter of turning a key in a door and says, woo, we're open. It's a matter of changing laws that will reflect this direction. And with that we've already seen, be it legal or not, changing in the country, we will see it. And if our jurisdiction ever decides to allow supermarkets, the ones that are in excess of 4,000 square feet, at least 3 major laws, if they decide to open that up so that they can actually operate, 3 major laws would definitely need to be amended. And that in itself would be the Sunday trade law in itself, because remember, those supermarkets in excess of 4,000 square feet cannot open right now on Sundays. They want to be able to open. That part of the law would have to be rewritten. Okay. And the second one is that the Labor Act as well would have to be amended as well. We would have to more even amend the liquor licensing law as well, because they have a number of categories under the liquor license law of what nature of license is a retailer, distributor, even a temporary, an event one. They have a number of categories, but those would require some amendments as well. Good evening, caller. How are you? Welcome back.
Good evening, Sabrina, and good evening to your esteemed listeners. Very interesting topic today, religion.
Everything
and,
woven into Sunday trade.
And culture. Oh, yeah. It's, issues like this really interest me. See, I went to 2 types of schools, like for my basic education up to grade 12. I went first to a Catholic primary school, where they were a little bit light on the keeping of keeping Sunday holy, and then I went to a boarding school, which was a Seventh-day Adventist boarding school run by some American missionaries, where when Friday comes, and 6 o'clock sunset is approaching, as you know, you now have to start cleaning your dorms. You can't work. You have to finish your cleaning before 6 o'clock, because
before
once
sunset,
you finish cleaning and you wash it
before sunset.
And exactly before sunset, and then you go to church, and then we used to sing these songs. I remember one specifically. Day is dying in the west. Heaven is touching earth with the rest.
Yeah.
Wait and worship while the night. I won't try to sing it, although I still remember the tune. Yeah, So
deja vu.
Yeah, And then the way they kept the Sabbath was different. So Saturday you didn't work, and you what did you do on Saturday as well? You went to church and everything. It was just totally different. And then you had missionaries who didn't drink, didn't smoke. So here I was moving from one religion, the Catholic, where they drank and smoke, many of them, and then I go to the other one, is like the other extreme. But it sensitized me to some of the issues. I know in Cayman you've got both Sunday and Saturday worship people, but especially now that there's 1 or 2 other religions coming in. I remember Sandra, featuring the Muslims and saying, "Look, how is your religion different?" and so forth. And we'll have to face this. In Europe, as you know, they face these issues like if somebody, if the law says you must wear a helmet, how about those sick people, the ones who wear the turban, and they had to go through litigation with that. But what really prompted me to call was the last caller, because she really defined what the
difference
legal issue. Exactly. Because you see, under the Constitution, Section 11, it guarantees everybody freedom of religion. But as usual, so it says nobody shall be hindered in their enjoyment of the freedom of religion. So the issue that she covered was, well, if they tell you the requirements of the job are that you should come to work on Saturday, why? Because this is a tourist industry. Saturday is a very is no different from any other day. If anything, there's even more activities on for Saturday and Sunday. And if you can't work on that, can you say, well, I've been discriminated against,
Right.
Now, okay, the fundamental human rights chapter doesn't apply to private business, but let us imagine that you wanted to get a job in government and they told you, well, this particular job, you need to work on Saturday and Sunday. But you see, what the law says is like any right, it has some derogations. It says, for example, nothing in any law done under its authority shall be held to contravene this section to the extent that it is reasonably justifiable in a democratic society, A, in the interests of defense, public safety, public order, public morality, or public health, or B, for the purpose of protecting the rights and freedoms of others. And this was, you might remember this, Sabrina, this was litigated actually in Cayman.
Yeah.
There was this young man I'll call him a young man, a child really going to school at John A. Campbell Primary School. And the rules in the education regulations, they said that you should cut your hair.
Rastafarian.
They said you should cut
no locks, no dreadlocks.
Exactly. And this child was, they came from a Rastafarian family. And he claimed through the father, of course, that, well, look, this is our religion. I can't cut it. But the school insisted, and then it went to court. The child, in the end, ended up losing a term. Finally, they found a solution. But at the end of the day, this is really the issue that the other lady was talking about. There are some cases where you just don't meet the requirements of the job. In other words, we are not denying you this job because you've got this religion, but the requirement of the job is you work on Sunday because of the nature of your job.
Correct.
Just to draw a slight analogy, if, say, you are going to start a Thai restaurant, I know in Cayman there's at least 2 Thai restaurants. Let us imagine you want to start a Thai restaurant, and you advertise and you say, well, I want somebody who speaks Thai, okay, to come and work in this job. Now, you might get somebody who applies there and says, well, I don't speak Thai, but I know a lot about Thai cuisine and this and that. I've even studied it in university and so on. And then the owner might say, well, look, but I want somebody who speaks the language as well. Now, that kind of discrimination is a discrimination which is allowed. Why? Because you are starting a business which caters to a certain
demographic and national,
demographic, and so exactly. Somebody who doesn't meet those requirements can't say, "Well, you can't discriminate against me."
Correct.
So, is it reasonably justifiable? Yes, that would be reasonably justifiable in that society. So, I mean, I really think that there is a need for greater education in this area. I'll give you a story of, this is not a Cayman story, but it has to do with religion. So to that extent, it is important. It was a famous case in my home country. It was known regionally. What happened was this young man, her family were Jehovah's Witnesses. And what he did was, after independence, a lot of countries developed a national anthem, and you had to salute the flag and sing the national anthem. Now, according to that version of the Jehovah's Witnesses, at least the way I understand them, I don't know if it's all of them, but they didn't get involved in government. So the child refused to sing the national anthem, refused to salute the flag, and as a result was expelled. So went to court and say that I'm being hindered in the enjoyment of my freedom of religion. And what the court said was, well, you are not being hindered in your religion. You are free to practice your religion, but we just say that if you are going to come to this school, these are the rules. Now, I personally disagreed with that, and the reason I disagreed with that was because it was a government school, you see. If it had been a private school, yes, you can say, well, this is a Catholic school, you have to go to church and sing those the chants they do, you have to do that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really a question of whether you are being hindered in enjoying your freedom of religion or not. Sometimes, yes, you would be hindered. Sometimes you are not being hindered. But Sunday trading. What are the current problems regarding Sunday trading? Are there still people who have a problem with that?
It's a more protection of our tradition. And and when you look at now for the demands of services and being asked, I don't think a lot of people are aware of how extensive the exemption list that continues to be exempted that gives them a choice to open up. So pretty much we're open. If you look at this, and the only ones really exactly, and more were added. But what I'm saying is that the difference in the retail of grocery products, there's only a difference in that line of the square footage of retail space.
Oh, yes.
If that is removed, then hello. When you look at the 18 sections here, 17 really, to be honest, removing 18 that it says establishment concerned in the provisions of such essential services as many may be prescribed by a cabinet order. If this continues to grow, you might as well just open and extend the square footage of the grocery stores. Because right now, anything over 4,000, that's the only thing that's stopping the big grocery stores from opening is the square footage, if they so choose to do so.
But do you know anything, the reason why the square footage was made like a threshold for, being allowed or not being allowed?
Back in the day, to be honest, I can't verbatimly go into why, but I think it was from, again, trying to appease everyone. And I remember speaking to Mr. Woody when he was on the show. And remember, there was a time down at the Greenery when they were at remember when they were down at the Strand, they used to open their pharmacy wing, which their pharmacy wing was close to where I think Scotiabank had eventually taken up. And they pretty much only had like a grill pull down the wider part of the store. And the laws were so strict then that I can recall in the conversation, he said that they had to put like a piece of tarp where you couldn't even see inside the grocery store. Like, are you kidding me? Because they had a dispensing, they had a pharmacy in there that you could still go and pick up your basic stuff. But if somebody wanted a chug of milk, let's say some chicken quarters, some thighs and all that sort of stuff, you couldn't get it because they didn't made within that square footage of what they opened on the Sunday. They didn't made provisions. I guess they could have if they wanted to, but there was a problem with just having a grill. Wasn't allowed to people to go in there. It was locked off. But because you could see inside the supermarket, that was used against them. Until eventually they just closed down. And that is from memory of what he shared with us right here. Yeah.
Wow.
It wasn't that people were allowed to go in. They literally had to block it off.
Yeah. You see, this is sometimes the problem that we have with certain rules. Once you make the rule, it goes back to one of my favorite statements: the law was made for man, not man for the law. You want to obey the law and the culture. After all, the Constitution says that Cayman is a Christian nation. By the way, the country I come from as well, it has it in the Constitution as well that Zambia is a Christian nation. So I have no cultural conflict there. Whether I'm in Cayman or elsewhere. Yeah, that's the way.
Mr. Balika, I got a direct answer that I'm sharing with you because I went into a rabbit hole there. But the answer to the question, it was to protect the small business stores and mini marts back in the day so that they could secure sales on Sunday and not have them pretty much competing with the bigger supermarkets on that day.
Wow. Well, that's what's very well. I would say just as an immediate reaction, it appears to be very, very well reasoned. That's why very often when I read legislation, having written legislation myself, when I read something, before I criticize it, ask for the reasoning. Usually legislation is not just made, you might agree or disagree with, but there's some reasoning. And this one appears to be really something that
But
could be great.
then
Yeah,
when you look at
because-
then versus now, as we continue to grow, we're seeing the demands. We're seeing where busting at the seams on Sundays at the mini-marts and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes there's a line pretty much almost to the door to check out in some of the mini-marts, that actually now the square footage, even for those stores that are able to open on that one day, is becoming stretched to the max. So it's a delicate dance. Please note, for full disclosure, I'm not for or against. I am just presenting it to get public feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because I mean, well, you have to respect the culture, one, but also clearly here there was also some very good reasoning that went into it, as to why it was done that way. And when you look at the law, it just appears for now, as much as I also don't have really strong views, like I don't have that hard thing that Sunday or the Sabbath is a day of rest. I don't have that. Later on, I became more in the brand of Christianity, which said that so long as you do things to the glory of God, you can do them any day. Now, I'm not quite sure that I'm not quite sure where that in the Bible comes from, but it's all a question of interpretation. But at the end of the day, I mean, it is good that you respect the culture, and sometimes as human beings, there are just certain things we're comfortable with. There are just certain things you're comfortable with. You like if you grew up. Every Saturday, every Sunday, you get up as a family. It
becomes a norm.
Clothes. It becomes a norm, and you go out into the street, into your car. The other people are doing the same. It just becomes such a comforting thing, and even sometimes you find because of that atmosphere that everybody's going to church and coming back to church, it's almost as if you are on your good behavior even without trying. It's really a good thing, but I think a reasonable balance seems to have been maintained in the legislation. But of course, the discussion will continue. Well, let me leave you there, Sabrina, just so that you chime in.
Thank you, always willing. And we got another follow up to that. Yes, it was very relevant back in the 80s and 90s, but the population was 1/3 of what it is now. Full Sunday retail, only a matter of time and closer than we might think. I feel that's where we're headed, which ties into exactly why this conversation came back up today. That's the comment, a follow-up comment. Yeah.
A little something which I just forgot is not directly related, but it is related to religion, but not so much Sunday trading. Way back, there have been some countries which have tried to conscript, not so much way back, to try to conscript people and said, okay, fine, we this is conscription now. You have to come in and go for military training in case our country ever goes to war. But we just want everybody to have some knowledge of how to shoot and this and that and so on. And I remember some Seventh-day Adventists said they couldn't be conscripted. And the reason, they said, well, this is you are teaching us now to go to war. We can't go to war because this is contrary to our religion. So they were told, well, had said in his name during biblical times, and their answer was, well, those who were ordained by God, but this one is not ordained by God, so we can't participate in conscription. We also had cases where exams were fixed on Saturday. And some Seventh-day Adventists said they couldn't sit the exam on Saturday because that would be called breaking the Sabbath. And some people practically ended up sitting the exam and delaying their graduation because they couldn't sit on a Saturday. But there were some who sat and cited that same verse, the law was made for man and not man for the law. Because what are you going to do? You delay your graduation for 1 year, what does that happen? You can't earn some money to be able maybe to pay your tithe and this and that. There were always those kinds of
It's
arguments.
all interpretation.
It's a question of interpretation. And I think so long as a society is ready to accommodate people while not breaking the law and continue to sort of like balance the conflicting and competing interests, we should be able to do pretty good. Well, thanks, Sabrina.
Thank you.
You take care now.
All right,
Bye-bye.
sir. Have a good evening. There we have it. What is your take on this? It's very interesting. And I thank you all for your comments and chiming in on this. And it really added a little bit more of lots of depth, actually. And instead of just pouring on what my research yield and how it's being perceived, sharing some of the stories, your input, of course, actually validated even more. And of course, for those who are sharing, who work in the industry, and sharing their facts, their experience from their perspective of their job title, you are appreciated. And that is why I love this space, because like I said, whether I'm for or against does not matter in this case at the end of the day. I just want to bring these topics because they are actually being had. The reality is there are a lot of businesses as well that are actually operating on this Sunday that are already in breach of the legislation. And at the end of the day, we just need to have a real, honest, upfront conversation. We are indeed changing. Our landscape is changing. Persons' interpretations where religion and respect is a delicate balance. Culture, tradition, and all of that is at stake. Hence, at the beginning, I'm saying as a jurisdiction, we are at the crossroads. Some of the conversations are very hard to have, and you have to be respectful of everybody's actual decision. But as we continue to thrive, as we continue to evolve, as we continue to modernize from legislation to just going along with not necessarily what everybody does, but what's unique, what's best for us? The key to all of that and the answer to that question is your participation, your feedback, letting our powers that be know exactly where you feel. And you know what? The youth, the men and women, our future, their input is critical to this. Critical. What are their thoughts? How do they feel? What are they subscribing to in 2026? It's interesting. And that boils down to the point where all voices matter. All opinions matter when it comes to charting our trajectory for tomorrow. Because I can tell you what, our own survivability, our own existence, continuing to exist, cannot be stagnated, and change is definitely inevitable. Tartarian says that does the chamber want lawyers to go to court on Sundays too? That's a business too, Tartarian. It is alleged that there have been proceedings over the weekend. I have no proof. It has been alleged that there have been cases that has taken place on the weekend. Oh, yes, Denver. Thank you. I saw your comment, you love my dessert. For those who don't misread this, yeah, Denver was one of the lucky ones that tasted my hand at baking, and you're more than welcome. What are you begging again? Oh, well, not begging. Shuling. Let's use the Caymanian terminology. You shuling again or what? You're more than welcome. But I did see your comment. Thank you so much. I'm happy that you enjoyed it. And I do it. It's my to relax, to be honest, Denver. And just put it, a lot of the people around me, they eat. And once I can have persons who actually enjoy it, I'm going to make it, but I got to get in that mood, I got to get in that mood. The weather for this weekend is actually lining up for possibly to throw it down again, but I got to be in the mood. But thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. Jimbo say, many people coming to Cayman are forcing the change. That too, but you'll be surprised, Jim, how much our very own would be like, who gives a crap? Open up. Let people have choice. I think if we really be honest with ourselves and you get the true opinions of a greater number of people, Jim, it will blow your socks off from those who will say, well, with an extensive list as exempted as we have, we might as well open. Because I can't demand my grandchildren, my children to go to church. I can't demand anybody to not have an after party after 12 o'clock in their private home. But as well, it's not that you're capitulating. It's not that you are being steered by a particular sector of people. At the end of the day, it is different times. You speak to my sons, you speak to my age group, you speak to my children, you speak to their children, which mine don't have children, but they're to the age they can have kids. You will probably get 3 different versions of how they look at this. And then you think of those who are before me, my aunts. They're probably on the fence. And you think of those who are before them, a little older. They'll probably give you a different. So it's like 5 different categories to bring it around in full circle. And it would be interesting. It would be really, really interesting. Really what we think of where we're headed when it comes to this Sunday trade. Jim says, Luigi and Sunday Sanders Brown is now we have Denver with Sabrina Speaks. How I get into. Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Yep. Jim looks like Denver's gotten a hook. I hear him shooling, I hear him shooling. That was a Morse code when you're baking again. I got so much out of that, Jim. I got so much out of that. Dean Gillette is saying, so would the liquor premises be able to open early on Sunday? More than likely, if it's relaxed, Dean. Mm-hmm. More than likely, if it is relaxed, that the liquor license would be subject to change as well. Yep, Dean. You're quite right. Well, look, this is not in stone. This is a matter for us to consider. But it's conversations that are being had. And for those of you who are real with what's happening locally, you can see it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. The Sunday trading is caused by tourists. Blame the tourist. Better throw my name in. Oh my God, what a bangarang. The list is growing. The list is growing. Oh, Connie Bonnie, love you all lots. But it's time. We've come to an end of another very fluid, fun-filled episode, I must say, despite us learning as we go along. Harsh realities, a little bit emotive, but, we cannot deny the fact. We can't deny the fact that Cayman is definitely changing. But change doesn't mean that we have to lose ourselves either. The question is not whether we open our doors on Sunday. It's whether we open our minds to Cayman, to Cayman and what we want to build, or is it happening with or without our input? Culture is not fragile. Caymanians are not fragile. We can protect what matters while adapting to what's coming. And this conversation really isn't about supermarkets either. It's about our very own sovereignty, our survival, our culture, our economics, our economy, and it's also very personal. But it has been a pleasure for having each of you join me here again for another episode of Sabrina Speaks. I want to wish you all a very good evening. And Shelma is still overseas with her husband, braving the cold weather. As a matter of fact, I have to call her when I finish to get an update. I missed, I think, one call from her. I'll get an update and I'll fill you in tomorrow, but she's holding down. It's cold as heck where she's at in Tampa because of what we had, but she's holding the fort down. Thank you, Connie. And I will definitely share the love and thoughts as we be there for Shelma. It has been my pleasure. We have come to an end. I gotta go. Be safe on the roads. Love you lots. Take care until tomorrow.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, Your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.